Hey everyone, and welcome. We're diving into the world of international medical fellowships today and using The Swiss-Made Egyptian by Dr. Mohy Taha as our guide.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book.
It is.
He kind of weaves his personal story with advice and guidance.
Yeah.
So it feels like you're having a conversation with a mentor.
Right, exactly. He doesn't just tell you fellowships are important, he shows you why.
And he starts right at the beginning, with why you even want to be a doctor in the first place.
Your why, he calls it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's that driving force behind your medical aspirations?
And what's really cool is he ties this whole idea of having a strong why back to his upbringing, particularly his mother.
Oh, his mother's story is just incredible.
Tell me more about her.
So picture this.
Yeah.
Egypt in the 1950s. She loses her husband. She becomes the sole provider for 9 children.
9.
9 children. And through it all, she's fighting tooth and nail to finish medical school.
Wow.
Talk about resilience.
Talk about resilience. That's amazing.
Yeah, she sounds like a force of nature.
She does.
She really was. And a huge advocate for education, arts culture, you name it. Even with limited means, she made sure her kids were exposed to a world of experiences.
That's amazing.
Dr. Taha actually says she used to tell them, don't follow sheep.
Wow.
Encouraging them to really forge their own paths.
That's such a powerful message. Did you have someone like that in your life, someone who really instilled that kind of go-getter attitude?
Definitely, yeah. My mentors always push me to think differently, and you see that throughout Dr. Taha's book, too.
Okay, interesting.
Like, take his experience with the IFMSA.
And that's?
The International Federation of Medical Students Associations.
Okay.
So he goes on this exchange program to Germany, figuring it'll be a cool experience, right?
Yeah.
But it ends up shaping his whole trajectory.
Really? How so?
Well, that 1 month in Germany led him to meet his wife.
Oh, wow.
He ends up conducting his doctoral thesis there, and it even influenced his decision to pursue training in Switzerland later on. Talk about a turning point.
It really goes to show you how these seemingly small decisions can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about crucial experiences, and I think it's time we talk fellowships.
Definitely.
We know you're interested in them, and Dr. Taha really breaks down why they're becoming so essential these days.
Especially now more than ever.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, it's not just about adding another line to your resume. Residencies, while important, they're facing limitations with training hours being cut.
Okay.
And fellowships, they bridge that gap. They give you that focused, hands-on experience you really need to master a subspecialty.
So it's about gaining that extra layer of confidence and expertise that can really make all the difference.
Exactly. And it's not even just confidence. It's about bridging what you learn from textbooks and the actual skills you need in a real-world setting. He talks about this a lot as he shares his own fellowship journey.
And I'm really interested to hear more about that journey.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on the shift towards fellowships being almost essential?
Yeah.
Is it a good thing? Is it
it
necessary?
It's definitely something that more and more medical students are thinking about.
Right.
Because it's becoming so important.
It's not just an option anymore for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's becoming almost a necessity.
Right. And I think that's a really important point. We're seeing this trend across a lot of different fields where specialized training is becoming more and more important.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's really valuable for us to dig into this topic and understand, what are the benefits of doing a fellowship? What are the challenges, and how can you make the most of that experience?
Yeah, and Dr. Taha's book is a great place to start.
It really is. He's been there, done that, and he's sharing all of his insights.
Yeah, and he doesn't sugarcoat it either.
No, he definitely doesn't. He's very honest about the challenges and the rewards.
Oh, exactly.
Which is what makes this book so valuable. Cool. So let's jump into his story and see what we can learn from his experiences. So we've talked about why fellowships are so important, but what does that journey actually look like?
Well, it's not always easy, that's for sure.
Right.
Dr. Taha doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
No, he doesn't.
He really dives into his own experience applying for Australian fellowships.
Okay.
It's very intense.
It sounds it. What kind of challenges did he face?
Well, first off, the sheer amount of planning involved. We're talking 2 years in advance.
Wow.
Yeah. He really stresses that early planning is key. And then there's the financial hurdle.
Right, because it's not cheap.
Not at all. He actually spent over $10,000 just for the initial trip to Australia for interviews.
Oh, wow. Just for the interviews.
Yeah, just to get there and interview. And that's not even counting visa applications and all the logistical stuff.
Oh, man. I bet the visa process was a nightmare.
He actually calls it a visa nightmare in the book.
I bet.
He talks about how his birth certificate translation was rejected.
What? Why?
Because it was missing one phrase.
You're kidding.
Nope. It didn't include the phrase, "This is a correct translation from the original."
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
Talk about attention to detail. I would be so stressed.
I know. It just goes to show you how these little things can really trip you up.
Absolutely. And it makes you realize how important it is to be prepared for anything.
Right. You have to understand the specific requirements for each fellowship and just be ready for the unexpected.
So how did he get through it all?
Well, I think that experience is actually part of what inspired him to create my fellowship.
Oh, yeah. His platform for aspiring fellows.
Exactly.
So it's like he took his own challenges and thought, how can I help other people avoid this?
Precisely. It's really incredible when you think about it.
It is. So for those who aren't familiar with my fellowship, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So think of it as a community-driven solution.
Yeah.
It's not just a database of fellowships, although it does that really well.
Okay.
You can search by location specialty, all the essentials, but it goes beyond that.
How so?
Well, it also offers advice from past fellows so you can get the inside scoop.
That's so valuable.
It is. And you can even connect directly with mentors who have gone through the process.
That's amazing.
It is. And maybe most importantly, it explores financial support options.
Which is huge because, like we were talking about earlier, those costs can really add up.
Absolutely. Dr. Taha actually compares it to getting research grants. He argues that there's this huge gap in funding for fellowships.
And that's a really good point because fellowships have such a direct impact on patient care.
They do. So this is an area where my fellowship is really trying to make a difference by connecting fellows with potential sponsors.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it could be the difference between someone pursuing their dream fellowship or having to give up on it because of financial constraints.
Absolutely. So it sounds like my fellowship is really trying to address all aspects of the fellowship journey.
It is. From finding the right opportunity to navigating the application process to figuring out how to pay for it all, it's really a one-stop shop for everything fellowship related.
So you've landed that dream fellowship and you've come out the other side. What does life actually look like as a fellowship-trained consultant?
Well, Dr. Taha doesn't just give you this idealized version of it.
Right. Right.
He breaks it down into what he calls the 3 T's of consultancy.
Ooh, I like that. What are the 3 T's?
So we got treating, teaching, and training.
Okay, so it's really about how you can contribute on multiple levels.
Exactly.
Let's break those down a little more, starting with treating. What does he say about that?
Well, he emphasizes that it's about more than just your technical skills.
Right.
He really stresses the importance of empathy. Clear communication building rapport with your patients.
Those soft skills are so important.
They really are. And it's also about navigating those sometimes difficult conversations with family members.
Oh, yeah, that can be tough.
Right. Explaining complex medical stuff in a way that anyone can understand, being a good listener.
Yeah, those are all really valuable skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we move on to teaching.
Okay, how does he approach that aspect?
So he talks about having this patient and nurturing approach with students. It's not just about memorizing facts, but encouraging them to think critically.
Oh, I like that.
Right. He likes to use those what-if scenarios to really get them thinking.
That reminds me of one of my mentors, actually. She would always push me to think outside the box, and it really made me a better clinician.
That's exactly what Dr. Taha is talking about. And then the final T is training.
Okay, what's his take on that?
So this is all about supporting the next generation of doctors sharing your expertise, mentoring residents and fellows.
Really fostering that learning environment.
Exactly.
So he really sees consultancy as this continuous cycle of learning, teaching, and giving back to the medical community.
Precisely. And he also talks about how his fellowships in Switzerland and Australia exposed him to different medical practices, different challenges.
Oh, interesting.
Though he had to constantly adapt and learn.
That makes sense.
And it all ties back to that growth mindset.
Which is so important, especially in a field like medicine.
And it really is. And you know what's really inspiring about Dr. Taha is that he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk.
What do you mean?
Even after becoming a consultant, he's done multiple observerships, research projects. He's always pushing himself further.
Really? That's amazing.
It is. And it goes back to that don't follow sheep philosophy from his mother. He even shares this funny story about starting an Oriental food business in Zurich.
What? Hold on. How does that tie into medicine?
It's about transferable skills. He talks about how the planning and execution involved in research and running a business are actually quite similar.
Oh, I see what he's saying.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So it's all about being open to new experiences and applying your skills in different ways.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners who are considering this international fellowship journey?
I think Dr. Taha's story really highlights that an international medical fellowship is so much more than just a stepping stone.
Right.
It's a transformative experience. It's about embracing challenges, finding mentors who inspire you, and gaining this global perspective that will really enrich your career.
It's about shaping your own path.
Exactly.
And that's where my fellowship comes in, right?
Yeah, it's that support system that can help you navigate this whole journey.
So how can our listeners use my fellowship to their advantage?
Well, it's a great resource for finding the right fellowship opportunities, connecting with mentors who've been there, and even exploring financial support options.
Fantastic. So to our listeners out there, remember, it's only the beginning. What will your journey look like?
Take that first step, explore your options, and embrace the amazing opportunities that await.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of international medical fellowships. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. And remember, my fellowship is there to support you every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.